My name is Victor, and I was a man who believed in the solidity of things, in the unshakable foundation of a family built over 30 years, in the predictable rhythm of a life spent with one woman. Irina and I met in university, two shy students who found a universe in each other's eyes. We built our life brick by brick, first a small apartment, then careers, then our daughter Ksenia. Our love wasn't a raging fire. It was a steady, warm hearth, the kind you rely on to get you through the long, cold winters of life. Our daughter Ksenia was the light of our lives. She had her mother's fiery red hair and my stubbornness. We raised her, celebrated her triumphs, soothed her heartbreaks, and finally, with a mixture of pride and sorrow, walked her down the aisle to a good man named Dennis. A year ago, they gave us the greatest gift, a granddaughter, Sonechka. Our family tapestry, it seemed, was complete, woven with threads of love, patience, and shared history. The first crack appeared on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Irina was at a yoga class, a new hobby she'd taken up 6 months prior, claiming she needed to manage her stress. I was babysitting Sonechka while Ksenia ran errands. The baby was fussy, and I remembered Irina mentioning a specific brand of hypoallergenic baby wipes she kept in the bottom of her wardrobe. I knelt on the floor of our walk-in closet, a space that always smelled of Irina's jasmine perfume. I moved aside shoe boxes and found the wipes. As I pulled them out, my fingers brushed against something hard and cold, tucked away at the very back, behind a stack of winter sweaters. It was a small metal lockbox, a simple gunmetal gray box I had never seen before. It was locked. A normal man might have shrugged it off. An old jewelry box, perhaps, but a cold, sharp needle of unease pricked at the back of my neck. We had no secrets. Our finances were joint. Our documents were in the top drawer of my desk. This box felt clandestine. I tried the obvious codes, our anniversary, Ksenia's birthday. Nothing. The box sat in my hands, heavy with silent accusation. I didn't confront her. Instead, I became an investigator in my own life. I started noticing things. The new lingering scent of her perfume when she returned from yoga. It was different, more floral, less like the jasmine I knew. There was a new subtle light in her eyes, a spark I hadn't seen in years, a spark that wasn't meant for me. She'd hum unfamiliar tunes while cooking, and when I asked about them, she'd brush me off, saying, "Oh, just something I heard on the radio." My once peaceful home became a landscape of hidden threats. Every phone call she took in another room, every text message that made her smile secretly, felt like a small betrayal. The lockbox became an obsession. I thought about it at work, during dinners that were now filled with a new, tense silence. I was living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Irina was in the shower, and her phone, a modern slab of glass and secrets, buzzed on the kitchen counter. A notification lit up the screen. It wasn't the message preview that caught my eye, but the name of the app, Secure Chat. I'd never heard of it. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the proof. With trembling fingers, I picked up the phone. Her passcode was still Ksenia's birthday. The betrayal of unlocking it felt both monumental and trivial. I opened the Secure Chat app. There was only one conversation, with a man named Alexei. The last message sent just minutes ago read, "Can't stop thinking about yesterday. The way you looked in the afternoon light. I'm counting the hours until Wednesday." The world swam before my eyes. Yesterday was Tuesday, her dentist appointment. I felt physically sick. I scrolled up, my vision blurring. The messages weren't explicitly vulgar, but they were intimate. They spoke of shared lunches, walks in parks I'd never been to, of a connection that was deep and emotional. They called each other pet names. He called her Krasavitsa, my beauty, a name I hadn't used in 20 years. I was a ghost in my own home. The next day I called work and said I was sick. I was going to follow her. I needed to see him. I needed to see the man who was dismantling my life. Wednesday arrived. At 1 p.m., Irina left the house, dressed with a care I now recognized was not for me. She was vibrant, alive. I followed her car through the city, my hands clenched on the steering wheel. She didn't go to a yoga studio or a cafe. She drove to a quiet, affluent district, a neighborhood of old, beautifully restored townhouses. She parked and walked up the path to one of them, a charming two-story house with a well-kept garden. She didn't ring the bell. She took out a key to his house. I sat in my car a block away, and I watched. I watched the door close, swallowing my wife of 30 years. I imagined them inside, laughing, touching, sharing the life that was rightfully mine. The jealousy was a physical pain, a burning acid in my veins. I sat there for 2 hours, trapped in a prison of my own making, each minute an eternity of torment. When she left, looking flushed and happy, I waited. I saw a curtain twitch in an upstairs window. A man's silhouette, my rival, my enemy. A plan began to form in my mind, cold and sharp. It wasn't enough to know. I had to see. I had to understand. The next day I went back. I didn't know what I would do. Ring the bell? Confront him? But as I stood there like a fool on the sidewalk, I noticed something. Tucked under a loose stone near the garden fence was a spare key. It was almost too cliché to be true. A test from the universe. I looked around. The street was empty. My heart was a wild drum. I walked up, retrieved the key, and without allowing myself to think, I unlocked the door and stepped into Alexi's home. The air inside was still and smelled of coffee and expensive aftershave. It was tastefully decorated, modern, but sterile. It lacked the comfortable clutter of a lived-in family home. My home. I felt like a burglar, a ghost haunting another man's life. I moved through the living room, my eyes scanning for photographs, for evidence of the man who was stealing my wife. And then I saw it. On the mantelpiece, a single, silver-framed photograph. It was a picture of Alexei, a handsome man in his late 40s with kind eyes and a strong jaw. And next to him, with his arm wrapped around her shoulders, was a woman with a bright, happy smile, a woman with vibrant, fiery red hair. It was Ksenia, our daughter. The floor fell away from beneath me. I stumbled back, clutching at the back of a sofa for support. The air was sucked from my lungs. This wasn't an affair. This was a cataclysm. This man wasn't just my wife's lover. He was our son-in-law's. What? Our daughter's lover? The world fractured into 1,000 jagged pieces. The betrayal was no longer just between Irina and me. It had now ensnared our daughter, our son-in-law, our grandchild. It was a poison that was destroying the entire family tree. I heard a key in the lock. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. I had nowhere to run. The front door opened and Irina walked in, humming that same unfamiliar tune. She stopped dead when she saw me. Her purse dropped to the floor with a soft thud. "Victor?" she whispered, her face a mask of shock and terror. I couldn't speak. I could only point a trembling finger at the photograph on the mantelpiece. My voice, when it finally came, was a ragged, broken thing. "Ksenia? Our Ksenia!" Irina's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of guilt. They were tears of something else, profound sorrow, a deep, ancient pain. "Victor, no," she choked out. "Oh God, no. It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Irina?" I roared, the sound echoing in the sterile room. "You have a key to his house. You have secret messages. You have a lockbox. And our daughter is in a photograph with him. Explain this to me. Explain how this is not the most monstrous betrayal imaginable." She sank onto the sofa, her body collapsing in on itself. She looked old suddenly and utterly defeated. "The lockbox," she said, her voice barely audible. "The code. It's 0913. I stared at her, uncomprehending. "The lockbox, Victor. The code is 0913. Go home, open it. Everything is in there." I left her there, in that house that held the secrets that were destroying us. I drove home in a blind haze, my mind a storm of confusion and dread. I went straight to the closet, retrieved the cold metal box, and with fingers that felt numb, I input the code. 0913. The latch clicked open. Inside, there were no love letters from Alexei. There were no trinkets from a secret affair. Instead, there was a stack of old, yellow documents. On top was a birth certificate. I picked it up. The name on it was Ksenia, but the space for father's name was blank, And the space for mother's name, it wasn't Irina's name. It was a name I didn't recognize. Anya Volkova. Beneath the birth certificate was a stack of letters, handwritten, from this Anya to Irina. And as I read them, sitting on the floor of our closet, the true story, the story of the last 30 years, began to unravel. The letters told a story of two young women, best friends, Irina and Anya. Anya, wild and free-spirited, had fallen pregnant after a brief, passionate summer romance. The father wanted nothing to do with her. She was young, scared, and her family had disowned her. Irina and I, already married and struggling to conceive, had offered to help. But before we could formalize anything, Anya discovered she was terminally ill. The letters were her plea to Irina. She begged her to take the baby, to raise her as her own, to give her the life she never could. She made Irina promise to never tell anyone, not even me. She believed the child's senia would be tainted by the truth, that she would always feel the shadow of her mother's mistake. She wanted her to have a clean slate, a real family. Irina had agreed. Anya died shortly after childbirth, and Irina had come home one day, telling me she had finally gotten pregnant after all this time. She had carried the secret, the weight of her promise to a dying friend, for 30 years. She had lived with the ghost of Anya every single day, seeing her features slowly emerge in our daughter's face. But recently, a man had contacted her, Alexei. He was Anya's brother. He had spent his life searching for the sister who had been cast out, and for the niece he had never met. He had found Irina. The affair was their secret meetings, their shared grief, their planning on how or if to tell Ksenia the truth. The lockbox held Anya's final words. The photograph in his house was of him and Ksenia, taken just a week ago at a family dinner at our house. A dinner where I had jovially shaken his hand, believing him to be a new business associate of Dennis's. I sat on the floor for hours, the letters scattered around me. The monster of infidelity I had constructed in my mind had vanished, replaced by a vast, silent ocean of my wife's lifelong sacrifice. She hadn't been unfaithful. She had been shouldering a heartbreaking, lonely burden, honoring a promise that had cost her her peace of mind for 3 decades. The secret chats, the hidden key, the lockbox, they were not the tools of a betrayal, but the fragile scaffolding holding up a truth too heavy to share. When Irina came home, she found me there, among the ghosts of our past. We didn't speak. We just held each other on the closet floor, two old souls surrounded by the artifacts of a life built on a foundation of love, and a secret that was both its greatest weakness and, perhaps, its most profound strength. The problem was no longer a rival. The problem was the truth itself, and the devastating, beautiful, and terrifying question it now posed. Do we tell our daughter that the woman she called Mama her entire life was the keeper of her greatest secret?